Okay, this video we are still in the properties panel on the home ribbon along with our properties window here. Next one is line weights right here. Line weights provides a choice of line weights to make current if no objects are selected, or change the line weight of selected objects. You see the command is L-weight, L-W-E-I-G-H-T. Drop it down. What line weight is I scroll down here, I see that the thickness, relative thickness of that line is changing. And currently I show it in inches. Very good chance yours will show in millimeters. Why that's the default setting, I don't know. That's just whatever it is just the way it was saved in CAD by Autodesk. By layer by block default, and then from 0 point to 3 decimal places all the way down to 0.083. Now, aside from these, now I said relative thickness, also you could think of it as the width of the line. Now be careful, there is a difference between this line weight and the width of a polyline or a P-line. The width of a polyline is definite. It is simply that, and that is an object. The big difference is it is scalable, where if you zoom in, the width of that line does get to be thicker. The width of a line weight does not. It is still vector item, vector quantity, or a vector graphic, where the width, the relative width line weight is always what it is, regardless of how far in you're scaled in or out. So besides these here, now again, like it said, I can change whatever I want, and then I can start drawing to this line weight. Or, let me put this back to by layer for a second, I can select an object, and by the way, I already have a few of these. I'll select this large one, this one over here on the left. Now notice color. We just talked about colors. This is now blank. Why? Well, it's because I have one that's red and one that is white or by layer, but when you select both of them, it's not going to give you both. So even here, color varies at this time. Well, here it's just going to go blank, and that's because you have more than one. Well, I'm not going to get into this. I could. Yes, I will. I'll change it to green. That's fine. Now they're both green, so therefore it shows up. But now I'm going to change the line weight. I'm going to go to the thickest one possible. Well, I don't see anything changed here. There's a reason. I'm going to show you that here in a minute. But right here it now tells me the line weight of these two selected items is 0.083 inches. And you know what? I don't want that. I want it to be 0.079. Again, they're selected. You make a change here. That's what these are. Escape a few times, and I go back to what my current setting is for new objects that I'm going to draw. Now, why does this not appear to be thicker, especially when here it's showing it as thicker? A few different reasons. The main reason is because the display of it is turned off. The other reason is, again, your monitors are going to lie to you a little bit, and this will be one of your assignments, to create a cheat sheet for these line weights. So that way you kind of know what you want to do for changing things. You want to display something a little differently. We'll talk about that later with the assignment. Here is why. Now, besides selecting or just changing here in general, and by the way, I was going to show you this. Okay, they're both green. They're both that line weight. If I select something else that isn't that setting, again, here it's a different color. Even if I change them to the same color, that's fine, but the line weight is still blank. Why? Because they're different. Now, whether you have them selected or not, or escape, not just here, but all the way at the bottom, down here, line weight settings, and ... Notice it's not all caps, therefore it's not necessarily a command. And you get this window here. And here are all the line weights, the same ones that you saw up in your properties panel. Now here, units for listing. You know what? I want it to be millimeters, and boom, there it is, millimeters. Or yours says millimeters, you want it to be in inches. So there it is in inches. Now I will tell you that if you do change this, let's see, I'm going to change it to millimeters. I say okay, Click here. This still shows in inches. It's a little glitch in the system. So if you do want it to show what your change is, if this is showing millimeters, you change it to inches or vice versa, and it's not changing here. All you have to do, save your work, close out of AutoCAD, reopen it, and then this should then take effect and show you the proper setting per your desire. Now back to this window. So here are the line types. Again, I prefer inches. That's what I'm most familiar with. I have a few other things. Right here, display line weight. Well, this is why it didn't show even though you changed it to a real thick line weight. It's because by default, this is not checked. And for good reason. If it were, hit OK. A lot of times, you might be drawing something and this is what it's going to look like. If I have a bunch of other items out here and I've got a lot of small intricates here, this is what it looks like. It looks like I was drawing with crayons or really thick markers. Doesn't appear to be very accurate, very precise. Obviously it is, but again, now notice, pay attention to the thickness, the line weight of this blue circle. As I zoom out, now it looks like it's filling in. Well, that's because the thickness is displayed exactly the same. It doesn't matter how far I zoom out or how far I zoom in, that relative thickness stays the same. It is not scalable. So zooming in, out doesn't make it look bigger or smaller like it would for a polyline. It will zoom in and out. And let me show you real quick what I mean by that. I'll say it's this thick. So I'm going to draw that. Now let me zoom in where this line weight is. You notice the polyline is getting bigger. The width of this polyline is in a way an object in itself, or that's the way it sees it. So whatever you say it was, as you zoom in, it looks bigger. It looks smaller. Now, in this case, the polyline's getting smaller, even though my line weight stays the same. Okay, so again, polylines width is scalable, line weights width is not. Now let me get back to the settings. So here I can change whichever listing units I want. I can display it or turn it off. In most cases, it's just very common this is turned off. Again, you can turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. Adjust display scale. So if you really want these to show up, you can say, you know what, show them even thicker and or show them minimal. I do want to see the difference, but I only want it to be minimal. Right here, default, the current setting for the default line weight is 0.010 inches. That is the default. You can set it to whatever you want. I don't recommend doing it, or I don't recommend changing it, simply because there's no reason to change any default setting unless you absolutely do want to and know what it is you're doing, to where you can always change it back if ever you need to. So this is kind of good information, especially when we get into layers. All of your lines are already set at default. So up here for line weight by layer, well, it's the default thickness. I'm going a little farther than what you see right now, but the default being 0.01 inch in size. Now, I'll leave that alone. Again, you can decide whether you want to display it or not. And your assignment, you probably will want to. It'll help show you what items are you've changed, which ones you've not. And so I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. This is right at 10 minutes at this time. I will show you line weights. This is the assignment you're going to be doing. And it'll be something like this that you'll print out. And that'll be your cheat sheet. Again, as I zoom in here, now it appears all of these line weights here are the same. They are not. This one all the way across here. There are 3 lines, 3 columns of lines. This one is all completely default, and then all of these down the middle are all the default line weight, exactly the same. As I zoom in, you should be able, now there it popped it up. And again, this is your display. The display, The software sometimes will want to conserve its own resources so it doesn't freeze up. It doesn't have to crunch out the calculations as much. But so right here you can see this one is still a little bit thicker. This one here appears to be the same, and so does this one here. So does this one here. Now I can see that the default's definitely thinner than these two on the sides. The ones on each side are identical. It's just I have a chart, a graphic telling me maybe one side is inches and the other one is in millimeters, just in case I'm ever given that. So looks like one of these three here, from this one to this one to this one of these will be equal to the, or is equal to the default setting. Let me put my cursor there and find out right here. It's this one in the middle. This is the 0.01 inch, like I'd mentioned, that is currently set to default, which is the same as the 0.25 millimeter setting. So good to know, especially when we get into other drawings, we get into our mechanical drawings. Sometimes some companies, they like the standard of showing your objects or your visible lines to be a little bit thicker, the object you're actually drawing, from other items. And again, we get into line types, we'll talk about that as well. So just to give you a quick display what your assignment will be, and I'll show this to you again later. And so we'll call this one good.